Warships from China, Iran, and Russia sail into South African waters. And the African nation's one of the oldest and closest Western allies, Washington is watching closely. A controversial naval exercise hosted by South Africa is threatening to push already fractured U.S. relations under President Donald Trump. Chinese, Iranian, and Russian naval vessels have been seen arriving at South Africa's main naval base in Simonstown, near Cape Town. The arrival was ahead of a week-long military exercise that began on Friday. The drills are being led by China and involve members of the BRICS alliance, a geopolitical bloc created to challenge the political and economic dominance of Western powers.
Just hours ago, an unexpected chapter in global geopolitics began unfolding off the coast of South Africa, and the reverberations are being felt far beyond the southern hemisphere. Warships from China, Russia, and Iran have arrived at Simonstown Naval Base, marking the start of a week-long naval exercise known as Wool for Peace 2026, a maritime drill that some are already calling one of the most significant demonstrations of military cooperation among emerging world powers in years. On the surface, South African authorities and the participating navies described this operation as a routine effort to enhance maritime security, protect key shipping lanes, and improve interoperability among their fleets. The host nation insists that the drills are focused on safety, collaboration, and peace, not confrontation. But when you step back and look at the broader context, it becomes clear that this event carries deep geopolitical implications, especially at a time of growing tension between parts of the so-called Global South and the United States. The naval exercise features multiple vessels led by China's People's Liberation Army Navy, including a guided missile destroyer and support ships, alongside Russian corvettes and Iran's own naval assets. The drill, scheduled to run from January 9th to January 16th, involves complex coordinated activities in South African waters near Cape Town, and it is taking place under the expanding BRICS framework, a coalition that now includes more than just its original members. While South Africa has repeatedly defended the maneuvers as essential for maritime safety in an increasingly complex ocean environment, critics, both domestic and international, have raised serious alarms. Some argue that hosting warships from nations that have strained relations with the West isn't just a simple military drill. It's a strategic signal about shifting alliances in an era of mounting global tension. At the same time, political opposition within South Africa is vocal. Members of the Democratic Alliance have publicly criticized their government's stance, arguing that hosting military exercises involving sanctioned countries undermines the nation's stated neutrality and potentially jeopardizes key diplomatic relationships with Western partners. On the international stage, the timing of the drills has also attracted scrutiny. The exercise comes amid existing friction between Washington and several of the participating countries, with the United States having previously seized a Russian-linked oil tanker in the North Atlantic, a move that was condemned by Russia and viewed by some as part of a broader U.S. pressure campaign. From the U.S. perspective, the close cooperation between Russia, China, and Iran, particularly in military zones traditionally dominated by Western naval power, is concerning. The United States, which maintains its own presence and alliances across Africa and the Indian Ocean, views the growing military integration among BRICS nations as a challenge to existing global norms. Critics in Washington have warned that involving what they consider adversarial powers in such exercises could weaken collective security and create instability. To understand the magnitude of this moment, it helps to recall that the BRICS bloc, consisting originally of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, was mainly known for economic cooperation and development goals. But over the past few years, especially as geopolitical competition with Western powers has intensified, BRICS has expanded its scope and influence. It now includes multiple additional nations under the BRICS umbrella, which has broadened both economic and strategic ties among states that often have complicated relationships with the West. This shift from purely economic cooperation toward integrated military planning and signaling has raised eyebrows in capitals around the world. It highlights the fact that the traditional global power balance is in flux, with new players asserting influence and redefining how alliances operate. For South Africa, the decision to host the exercise represents a tricky balancing act. The country is deeply invested in its role as a leading voice in both African and global South diplomacy. It has long-standing trading relationships with Western partners, including the United States and several European nations. At the same time, it has cultivated strong ties with China and other BRICS members through economic agreements, investments, and now military cooperation. Navigating this diplomatic tightrope is no easy task, especially when critics see the exercise as dragging South Africa into geopolitical fault lines it may not want to fully embrace. Behind the rhetoric of peace and maritime safety, the exercise also has elements of geopolitical signaling. Russia, China, and Iran are all nations that have at various times found themselves at odds with the United States and other Western actors. Their synchronized participation in a major naval drill serves not only a practical purpose of operational coordination, but also communicates strategic solidarity. It is an unmistakable message. These states are capable of coordinating large-scale military activities outside of the Western security framework, and they are willing to use emerging power blocs, like BRICS+, to do it. Such symbolism is powerful in the world of international relations, where actions, even routine exercises, are often interpreted as indicators of alignment or intent. And as the global political landscape shifts, military collaborations like this one are being watched closely by capitals from London to Washington, Beijing to Moscow. They serve as barometers of influence and strategic preference, but it's not all controversy. South African officials stress that these drills have practical benefits. They emphasize that enhancing the readiness of naval forces to respond to piracy, protect commercial shipping lanes, and conduct joint rescue operations can be a force for stability, particularly in a part of the world where trade routes are among the busiest and most vital for global commerce. Economists and maritime security experts have also pointed out that safe shipping lanes are essential for global trade. In an era of economic uncertainty and fluctuating supply chains, cooperation between navies, even between rival powers, can mitigate risks such as piracy or accidents. These practical arguments form part of South Africa's defense of the exercise, which government officials label as essential rather than confrontational. Still, the international context cannot be ignored. The exercise follows a period of increased U.S. criticism of South Africa's foreign policy, particularly regarding its relationships with Iran and Russia. Some Western critics have accused South Africa of weakening its traditional neutrality by hosting these navies, even as Pretoria insists it is acting in its national interest and within international norms. This event comes at a time when the world's geopolitical architecture is being tested on multiple fronts. Conflicts in Ukraine have strained relations between Russia and the West. Trade tensions involving Beijing continue to shape global markets. And Iran's ongoing geopolitical positioning, both regionally in the Middle East and now within broader frameworks like BRICS, adds another layer of complexity. In this climate, multilateral military exercises take on meanings that extend far beyond the drills themselves. What happens next remains uncertain. As the week of naval exercises continues, the international community will be watching how both the drills themselves and the diplomatic interactions surrounding them evolve. Will this lead to deeper cooperation among BRICS+ nations? Will Western partners issue diplomatic responses or reassess their engagement strategies? Or will this prove a momentary flashpoint in an otherwise routine partnership? One thing is clear: the world is watching. The presence of Chinese, Russian, and Iranian warships in South African waters, participating in a coordinated naval exercise under an expanding geopolitical bloc, is not only a military event. It is a symbol of shifting alliances, a test of diplomatic balance, and a signpost of how international relations are adapting in a changing era. As the geopolitical lines shift, nations are making choices that reflect both their interests and their calculations about the future. For South Africa, this exercise represents both opportunity and risk. For global powers, it provides insight into emerging strategic patterns. And for the rest of the world, it is a reminder that the balance of influence is neither fixed nor guaranteed. It continues to evolve in complex and consequential ways.